I feel very lucky that I still have traders who have been with me for 3 or more years and are now a lot smarter than I am, and I think trade a lot better than me. They may not trade larger sizes than me, but their systems are cooler and they still turn up. So hello to you guys as well. Thank you for your support. We're going to build on GBPJPY, and we will, depending on how much time we've got, work through a few different ways we could look at it. We'll start with the wizard. We'll get a little bit more complicated than that. We will push it all the way through to Marty's shredder. I've had a few more thoughts. I've got re-excited about the shredder recently. There's a few more things that have appealed to me that we'll discuss, and we'll, if time permits, build something that's probably a little over the top on the time filters, but then we'll reverse back a few steps and have no filters around time at all and just build it around the indicator settings. And if time still permits after that, we'll what I call liberate, which goes through even that existing code and take out code where we can to simplify it so that the end result is absolutely minimalist. Also, we'll cover 1 or 2 interesting things. Having chatted with a few people in the field recently, there's some things which we've known for a long time, but from an academic point of view, we're able to say have been cemented in now too, which is nice. Let's get underway. I'm bringing up my control panel, the strategy analyzer. And we'll say a new strategy on the top here. And we will call this system, we'll give it quite a few A's. We'll go 911, and then we'll call GBPJPY. I'm going to add in AAA profit and AAA stop. We'll start with an 800 and 800, but I think we'll very quickly lift above that. From experience, we now know that minimum 950, 950, and probably more like 1200, 1200. We'll start with something simple. Remember, we always want to just analyze our starting base, and then we go from there. We've done some sessions which are a huge amount of attention just on the starting base. So I've said CCI, and then the period, which was 14, I've set a user-defined input instead, and it's going to be the indicator period. That way it's no longer hard-coded at 14, it can be at whatever. Crossing below, numeric value 0. I don't think we could code up anything more elementary than that. Then we are entering short with the signal name short. David says, I trust you've pressed record, just reminding me to make sure I have a video copy of this. I have this time, thank you for the reminder. I'm sure there's times when I've forgotten and I would need that reminder. From entry signal short, ticks, value, taken from our profit target, OK and OK, and again with our stop loss, from entry signal short, ticks, for our stop, and we're done. Go to GBPJPY and backtest that. Putting in the parameters for the first time, I will remember to right click and save it so I don't have to do it every time. Just a trap for someone new is use instrument settings. That's okay. I've worked with both and it doesn't make much difference. If you build a system with the default, or then you change it to default 24/7, which is what we like to do because it's more completely inclusive. On good system design, it might make a 2 or a 3% difference to your end strategy. Okay, I trust I've got everything there. I'm right clicking and I'm saying set as default. We'll run our first backtest and begin to get an idea on what it is we're mucking around with. In the back, with one screen behind, you can see that it says it's backtesting on it. It'll be a little slow. Actually, it should be pretty quick. And there we go at 52. I like to change this to currency, and I'm most interested in the graph that comes forward. The next thing would be just to optimize this thing a little and get something a little bit prettier. The first thing I'm going to do is, I have a fair idea that 950 and 950 is a smarter place to start these days. So by taking everything to 950 and 950, that means I'm not optimizing at all, that's just increasing the setting. And then what I'm interested in doing is really varying the period of CCI. So is CCI set at 14 a good idea? Is CCI set at 20 a good idea? Remember that it's a very basic thing we're looking for, CCI cutting 0. As I say, you couldn't get any simpler. Now, we could optimize by max profit factor. Actually, we probably will. We could optimize by minimum drawdown as well. In the back, you can just see it starting to load. And I think for a simple system, that's a nice starting profit line. It's generally going in the right direction, you'd agree. And it's also at this stage still very simple, and now percents are very simple. We'll just go to the optimizer and see some of the different settings for CCI. Marty says all our results from a currency point of view are times 100, and so they're a little bit ridiculous. And is there something we can do to compensate that? Not particularly that I know of. Okay, with this in mind, let's see what we can do with this next. First of all, with the optimizer, what I'd like to do, I'll bring this out to full screen, is just have a quick look at the parameters and see what was a good idea with the CCI setting, and then we'll leave it around there. So look at these profit lines. This one here is at 21 when I do the mouse over. That one there's at 20. If I can, I'll probably stick to the 20 just because it's so generic. So if you're going to do a simple moving average, for example, you'll do it at 20, 50, 100. I mean, that's as basic as it gets. CCI is so closely bound to a SMA, it's not funny. Mathematically, they're cousins. So if I can set this at 20, I will, because I feel comfortable at 14, because that's default. I'd feel comfortable at 20 for reasons said. So just having a look at between the two again. Yeah, there's basically no difference. Okay, good. I'll leave that at 20. What I'm going to do then is just go into the strategy and just set a few new defaults so that I don't have to remember them. So our profits on stop, just to get a nice curve quite quickly, we move to a 95 pip profit and stop with an extra 0 for a 10th pip account, so 950, 950, and a 20 on the indicator period. And just as a fresh start, what I'd now like to do is, because I actually saved the wrong, not the wrong settings, but saved different settings, I'm now putting in my new settings also here. In the regular backtest, I'm going to save that and run a backtest just so that my backtest takes up the full screen, because I want it to take up the full screen because the next thing I'm going to be looking at is price action. What I might start to do is take screenshots and keep a journal as I go. I'll keep telling you the single biggest thing is if you catalog your journey, then in 6 months time, in 9 months time, when you look at some of your systems which were absolutely amazing, you'll be able to look through your thinking why. So for example, the week just been, I did a lot of work looking at a whole bunch of systems I built in January this year, and the systems have all done well except one out of that batch, and I think it was about 5 or 6 in the batch. And because I'd documented every single thought process, I could see, okay, that with the bad one, that's the storyboard I went through to get to building it, and with the good one, same thing, okay, and I can learn from that. If I didn't have that, I'd be 6 or 7 months down the track with that particular batch, and I'd have no clue, or I wouldn't be able to learn or progress from the particular one that was a dud. To the chart we go. The most powerful systems I've ever built are essentially price action, nothing more, and when I say powerful, I mean longevity and ability to withstand changing market conditions. So let's have a look at these winners, and what I'll look for is where they're arriving. So this interests me because this stop, for example, was a stop where it looks like a whole heap of people are stopping out because the market's turning at that point. So a whole heap of stops are getting hit. If you're short, you sell to open, you buy to close. Looking at this next screen here, there's absolutely nothing remarkable about that. It's just standard signals, so none of the profits or the stops are winding up at particularly interesting points. So some are winding up at interesting points, and some it's just mediocre. So my question would then be, the ones that are arriving at an interesting point, is there something unique about those ones? So first of all, let's go find something that's actually really gets our attention. Okay, so this one on screen, this winner here, really gets my attention because price moved down to a point, and it was a defining point and a turning point, and the profit target was on the wick of that candle, and then price turned for like a day and a half afterwards. So that really captures my attention. And two things I'm looking at is the current candle was red, the candle prior to that was green, and that I find is just a little interesting pattern there. Okay, this one interests me as well because I'm particularly interested in anything that concluded at a turning point. This concluded at a turning point. The candles coming into it were a green and then a red one, and then the signal confirmed. So you can sort of see where I'm going to lead with this, can't you? I think this one here is much the same as well. It's interesting because price went so close to that profit target. It honestly would have to have been within a pip the first time, and then moved up away. It went down a second time, and again it hit so much at that point that it again bounced up and away. So and again I've got sort of a green and then a red. I'm then going to contrast that against, say, some of these stop outs. That one there, for example, was red and then red. This one here was red and red, they're both stops. This one here was a stop and it was red and red. This one here is a win, and it's a very unique turning point. As price soared down like a knife, it then turned on a dime at that point, and the confirmation for that from a price point of view was green then red on the hourly. So I think I've made my point. Let's code that up and see what happens. I think it's so far quite exciting because CCI 20 cutting 0 is very elementary, and then the color of the two candles that we're coding up is really nice. A red candle on our confirmation candle is a no-brainer. The prior candle being green I think is a nice touch. In the wizard, the way to do that, very easy. Click Add. Bring out the price action ones. So explode the price data on both. The open for right now on the higher side of the close for right now gives me a red candle. And OK. Add again. The open, I'm going to change this figure down the bottom here, 1 bar ago, needs to be on the lower side of the close for 1 bar ago, so I'll change that to a 1 also, and press OK. So now we have this idea of a green candle, a red candle, our signal confirming with CCI cutting 0, and we're away. CCI being set at 20 is very vanilla. Our profit and stop size is on the smaller side, but quite comfortable for hourly candles that we like to work with. Let's have a look at this effect. Okay, we've jumped to 61%, which means we're actually starting to make some serious progress. We've got a little bit of a lip going on here at the start of 2007, and that was because there was a fundamental change right across the FX markets at the start of 2007. What I'm going to do now is just commit a crime and slice 4 months off 2007 for all the wrong reasons. I'll put it in a little later, but right now I want everything on my side. Now I just went up to 62%. The next thing I have in mind is the strength of the trend. How strong is the movement that's underway? What can we do with that? One thing we haven't visited for a while is ADX. So let's muck around with that now. We might also, at this stage, remember we're going to filter by time, we might also have a little quick sneak peek at what's going on with time right now, and look to just maybe take out the worst hour at least. We'll just allow ourselves to take out 1 hour. So if anyone's confused with this entry time and exit time up the top here, entry time means the time that the trade entered is what everything's based on regardless of when it stopped out. So what this is saying right here, and remember we think in an hour shifted to what we actually see, so it's the 1 o'clock we see. From a programming point of view, we think of that as a 12 o'clock. So trades getting in at 12 o'clock and stopping out at all different times, but they're giving us trouble. And if I was to change this entry time to exit time, then it's not necessarily showing us when the trade got in, but it's showing us the particular hour that's kicking us out. And that's a whole nother discussion to be had there, so we'll just stick to the entry time. So right now, if we wanted to, we could just take out that 12. We'll have a little sneak peek at the days of the week. It's no surprise, particularly on a yen pair, that Monday is a bit of a winner there. Okay, next what we need to do is set some predefined levels to muck around with the ADX. We don't know what we'll find yet, but we'll have a little bit of a look. So we'll bring up our strategy again. So back to the financial kitchen to cook up something else. ADX level. Oops, wrong field. Sorry about that, profit target. Down here, ADX level. Again, we'll set that at 14. And the ADX period, we'll set that at 20. Now we'll add a few things here. I think the first thing we'll do is just polish off the worst hour, because remember, the first part of what we're building here is we are allowing ourselves to be a little bit heavy on time filters, and then we'll free them up a little later. Time series must not equal the time value of 12 midday. Okay. Now we'll add an ADX rule in. So we'll say ADX. Now this hard code at 14 will actually make that adjustable. So we'll make it the ADX period, so we can make that anything. But it needs to be on the greater side of the ADX level that we set. So what that means is the higher the ADX, the more price shifting in one direction or another. So we want to be able to lift that level. We don't want it to be down below such a level. So we're at 62% right now. Let's see if we can achieve anything with this here. So we've lifted from 62 to 66. So I think that was a step in the right direction. Not great, but okay. What I might do at this point is actually screenshot and document and make a few comments. So instead of pressing print screen, I can press Alt print screen, and it's just that particular region on a Mac. Now here, this will test me. I think it's the actual Mac button, Shift and 4, and then you can actually select a region and let go, and that'll actually take that screenshot and drop it straight on your desktop. So there's my screenshot there, and watch this, I'll actually make a little collage so it's more than just that. The next thing I want to do is I'll screenshot all this information here, and then what I'm going to do is just neaten it up a bit, so take parts of that and make a master image out of it pretty quick. This helps if you're a visual person. So now I've got that there, and what I might even do to that graphic is also just add all the system settings to date. So I'll show you how I do that. Right click, edit. I'm going to screenshot this screen so far, drop that into my graphics, and I just want this component of it. So I'll put that there. And the last thing I want, so it's a little bit of effort, but I just want to show you this once so you can see the end result. The last thing I want to screenshot is this here. And I'm going to put that beside that one. Now when I blow this up, now I can put this in a PowerPoint from here, or I can save it as a JPEG in its own right, but I can see everything in a snapshot from that, and I like to build these as I'm going. So I'll put in that little bit of extra effort, but when I take a step forward, if I want to take a step back and try going in a different direction, I can think clearly, because I can say, okay, at this point, that's where all my settings were, that's how they're coded up, here's all the stats here, I can see my profit line. It's actually good to go one step further and to actually screenshot the particular backtesting settings that you had, because you can think you knew what they were, but they can sometimes be different to what you actually have in your strategy settings. So I'm going to do that also, and also remind myself of the name of the system. So I'll grab those and put them here without taking out the name. Actually I can. So I'll put that up like probably about there. Okay, so now on that graphic I really do have everything. Now every step I take, as long as I've progressed about probably 8% improvement, I'll do it again. So I'd build one of these at a 52%, at a 60%, at a say 66%, and I'll probably build my next one at about 72, 74%, and then I'll build one more at 80%. Then what I can do is, at the end of this, I can say, oh, it's great, I made it to 80% success, but I can see here, as I look back through the chapters of what I built, I can say it's nice, but from 70 to 80, I can very quickly see, for example, I cut way too many trades and I added way too many rules, or I went too far down the time path. And then you drop them into a PowerPoint and you can flip back and forwards like flip cards. Let's carry on. So I do that for every step, but I won't do that for every step tonight. Let's now look at price action again. Let's go to the chart. Because we need to ask a question, and that question is, was our big idea of green candle, red candle a successful idea? So I like that this one hit the profit target right up to now. I like that the stop here stopped out at a turning point, because it tells me that even the stops are significant stops. Okay, and I'm still in on something bigger than just myself. I like that profit target through there. I'm really happy with that stop, because that stop was also a market turning point for the next 2-3 days. Nothing of particular note with the next stop, but it was, again, an obvious, it took another 8 hours where the market turned to that point still. I won't point out every single one, but what I am looking at now is within the green and red, is there some no-brainer stuff to comment on, okay? So, what of excessively big red candles? What is there to say about green candles that are ridiculously small? Is there something interesting about a red and green candle that are about the same size? And a good way to start some of these questions is, first of all, make observations from a golden example first, and then run from there. So on screen's a golden example from a turning point. So with the red and green, what's the composition of those two price actions? Okay, take a snapshot of that, just in my mind, no need to document that. And then compare that with, say, some of these stop outs like this one. I think that's quite similar, so I don't think there's anything to learn from that. That's a win, and the green and red in the example about to pop up for you are really small. Okay, this signal here leads me to a question. And that is, how ridiculous will I let the current confirmation candle be? How big will I let that red candle be before it's just a little bit out of control? Another way of phrasing this is, the open of the green candle is the bottom of the green candle. The close of the current candle is the bottom of the red candle. So my question is, what distance between the bottom of the green candle and the bottom of the red candle will I tolerate before the size of or the distance between them is a little bit beyond a joke? So let's code in a variable for that, and then let's optimize that thing and see what we come to there. And that's based on common sense. A lot of our traders who are progressing well, a lot of what they do comes down to common sense. Okay, making sure that the current confirmation candle is not ridiculously out of the normal, as some candles will be, because of an anomaly in the market. I think it's quite reasonable to weed that out. So we need to have a variable because we're not sure how much one will be excessive to the other in the simple price action of green candle, red candle we're studying right now. So we'll put that in there, and now we'll just bring up a price action comparison again and code up something to play with. So the open of one candle ago is the bottom of the green candle, and that's obviously going to be larger than or at a higher point than the close of the red candle where we're just getting in. But we also need to be able to vary and see what's going on there. So we'll make that variable there. So your code should look like that. So before we make this change, we just need to take a snapshot in our minds of where we were. Again, these snapshots here this shows us where we were. So we can just stop and consider our current setting, like that there. And at any point that we don't like where we step to next, we can come back to this point and say, you know what, we like this point, let's go in another direction again. So we might say comparing excessive confirmation candles was a bad step. We will step backwards and try something else. So that's the step we're at now. Let's now progress forward. And remember, if we make particularly excessive progress from the 66% we're at now, then we'll build a stepping stone to step onto from a graphic. Okay, we step to 68. So it's not a big step. Let's just ask a few questions to the optimizer. And we might have to ask the optimizer 2 or 3 questions. This is max profit factor. Now, max profit factor, which is the default setting, I've found it to be, and someone correct me if you think differently, but it is the thing that favors most the average trade column. So the default that the optimizer is set at is also the thing that I think optimizes best for the average trade column. So if this is the thing that you're keeping your eye on, which should be greater than half your profit target, that's one to start with. So I think it is a nice point to start with. And again, advanced traders, speak up if you disagree with me. Okay, where we were, I mean 100, 108, 109, 107, whatever. It's all much the same. It's had a bit of impact. I think it's quite logical to leave it in there for now. We'll just move away from the optimizer and just leave it there like that for now. At this point, what we could do is remove the positive offset, remove the time rule, and just reflect on the signal count difference. I think you'll find it would jump from where we are now to 165, probably to about 230, and we'd probably lose about 2%, so we'd probably drop down to about 66%. So you'd have to say, for the signal count, is it really worth those things? But I think we'll liberate them later, and they're based on a fair bit of common sense, so no particular harm done. Now, what we'll do now very quickly is, because we've got a nice graph to work with, is we could very, very quickly, what I call slash and burn. So we can put this through some time considerations, add some time filters, and bring this up to a system that's going to be, you know, an 80%er very quickly. Then what we could do is shred it to bits and see how it goes through that, and then we could say, well, that's one idea if we're going to be liberal with what we do with time. Then we can call that a stepping stone, leave that there, step back and say, okay, let's get rid of all our time filters and let's not allow ourselves that luxury, and let's keep simple signal rules and build something on that instead. And then we can have a discussion at the end over which one would be more robust rolling forwards. So we'll take the luxury of doing all sorts of things with time, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to click on the Trades tab, right click and export to Excel. Hit our macros, we've got two here, the shredder and our time one. And we can make a few judgments from here. I'm very comfortable now in saying that taking out up to 3 months in a year in any system you build is a robust and a measured decision, and there's not a lot of negativity that I could say can be placed on such a decision. So I'd like to keep the 3 months together, so it's essentially taking out a season, but even then I don't always do that. So I could take out September at 44%, being the worst. I could take out May because it's wasting my time. It's not making much progress. And I could take out March if I wanted to look to pick a fight with 3 of them. I could drop out Sunday because it's not really a day of the week, a trading day of the week. That should really be coming into it at all. And then looking through the times, I could probably take out certainly the 40%er and some of the 50%ers. But the shredder will be a bit of a final judge as to if that was a good idea or not in one dimension. So let's do that now. Again, each of these steps I'd be adding to a slide, so I can thumb through the journey. It's like reading a children's storybook, and you can say, I'm going to choose my own adventure, I'm going to go back 3 places and choose a different path. One thing I'll say too, with some of the traders I talk to regularly, is it really is a matter of being an athlete. You do get really fit and healthy at knowing where you're going. It's like running through the bush, through the trees, and you just get really quick at jumping over the rocks and darting around the trees. And as you're building, as you can see probably with some of these things I build, you can see that I can move quite quickly from one idea to the next and stay on track. And it just comes from experience of knowing what is and is not significant. And where that comes from is little bits every day. If anyone is struggling, it comes to one thing. You're not doing a little bit every day. And to anyone else who is doing a little bit every day, you'd feel yourself like well-oiled cogs, just getting better and better at it. What we'll probably do here is unlock it to be able to write that time code in quickly. I'm clicking on unlock code and it says, are you sure? You say yes. At first it can feel like you've done something evil by unlocking the code, but you'll get comfortable with it. I'm going to click save as. Copy and paste that name, although it's not pasting in, so we'll just write it in. How many A's do we have there? Probably about 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 1. Unlocked, and we'll put time filters added. How's that for a nice long name? Say OK. Very important that I compile that. If I don't compile that, it's not going to appear in the list. And I will have saved it, but I won't be able to find it anyway. Okay, let's add our time in. I recommend everyone makes themselves a little text file that they can just pull their favorite bits of code from. So I'll show you a text file here that I can just pull bits of code from all the time. And there'll be quite a lot of snippets of code that you like to drop in and out as you become more advanced. And you'll divide them into sections. You'll have time sections and other sections to just pull from quickly. When we're adding new code in at this level, the only thing you need to remember, two things actually, is we're mucking around with the condition set 1. It starts with an if and an open bracket. Now if you open a bracket, you've got to close a bracket. So what I like to do to remember it is I actually like to enter my closed bracket down a bit so it's out of the way, and that way I can't possibly mess it up. So I took that bracket that was on the right hand side of tick size and I've dropped it right down. Now if I'm going to add conditions and times and things, and let's say you miss your wizard, well, you can still use your wizard. Just be careful to put the and, because you're saying if something and something else and something else. So putting and space, now I'm going to right click, insert condition, and it brings my wizard back and I can put any thing I was going to, like old times. And when you get a little bit more advanced, you'll be able to see how to add multiple sets, and everyone gets excited when, for example, they teach themselves how to make more than 10 sets, because that's the maximum of the wizard. So suddenly you can press outside those 10 wizard sets. But for us, what we're doing here is time. So let's go have a look at our time and make judgments on what we're going to kill here. So I'm going to take out September, May, March. I'm going to take out Sunday. I'm going to take out 4, 5 and 6 in the morning, 12, 1, 3 and probably 6 at night, which is 1800 hours. We'll take out a few anyway and we'll see that effect. And we'll make a call from there. So I'm just going to drop them in. Code is poetry. Keep it neat. And be a little bit logical. So you do days, then weeks and months in order. Okay, I'm going to just screenshot my choices of what it was I was going to take out, and I'll crop that. I'm also going to take a screenshot of the current Excel spreadsheet. I could even put the code on. I might even do that. I'll just take the direct snippet that is relevant. Don't really care if I can see it all or not. Something, I mean, even just like that, so I'll just blow that up so everyone can see it. Something like that. Again, so I've got those notes as I go. And let's see the effect. We'll just compile that and run it. Now, when you're finished and compiling thing, make a decision. Either you're going to keep your code window open all the time, but you're going to remember which window you're using, or close it every time, because otherwise what you'll find is you start editing 2 or 3 windows and you've actually got different versions of the same code open, and it gets a little bit silly. Now, what I've done wrong here is I haven't moved to our new unlocked code. So I've just changed that over, so there I was with my old system, thinking that it wasn't having any effect. I think that's one mistake that you'll make all your life, no matter how much experience you have for some reason. Try again. 84% success, no more than 2 stop outs in a row, 71 signal count. It passes a few things, but we took liberties in that we just slashed and burned on the time front. So let's document this, write it up, see how it shreds, and then we'll go back to a different stepping stone and head in a more moral direction. Question for the room: would you like me to build a graphic of this stepping stone quickly here? Or do you get the idea and we'll just move on? Put in build if you want us to build one quickly. We'll build it. Right, let's build it. I'll do it in double quick time for those who are very patient. There's our opening one. Next I want all the stats that went with that. Let's do that now. So we'll grab these stats, zoom in, move them beside each other so that they take out minimum amount of room. We'll take that and drop it in on the left hand side because we don't need that area. The next thing we'll do is take the actual backtesting settings so that we remind ourselves on which system it was, so we can see right up the very top which system it was and all those settings, so we absolutely can replicate this in 2 weeks' time when we look at this with a blank face and can't for the life of us remember what on earth we were thinking at the time. If I want to cut out the bottom, probably could, like that. While I'm here, I'll probably go get a last hurrah of the code. Because we went to the code level, what I would do is not try and, I can't get into the wizard to document it that way, so I'd right click, edit. Now, expand out everything, so, excuse me, these little pluses through here. Make sure you expand all those out. Now you can save all your systems for all you're worth, but there's no better way to keep a safe copy of your code than to literally lift your code out and stick it in a text document. So I go select all, copy, and I drop that in a text document beside where we are here. I mean, what I might do even now for, I mean, I won't right now, but I could drop that into a text document. But one thing I can do, for the sake of this graphic, is this. There's a meaty part of that I never want to lose, and that is the main code component. I know what my parameters are, I don't need to take them with me, but this bit here is the most important part. So I'm taking condition set 1 with all its rules, and I'll include that in the graphic. That way when I look at that graphic, everything's in front of me. So what I'll do is I'll just put in all those settings as red text here. So by doing that you can see where I'm taking this. Okay, can you all see that? There's my backtesting settings on the right, there's my lovely equity curve, there's my stats on the left that make me proud, and there's the code, so I can see in a flash, oh yeah, it's good. You've got CCI cutting 0, nice and simple, and I can see on the right what CCI is, so I can read that in as 20, fine. A very simple thing with ADX above a certain level so that it's actually, price is actually shifting around, fine. One price action rule, green candle, red candle, fine. Then I've made a complete mess of things by putting in a whole heap of time filters. So okay, that's how we've hit the great stats very quickly. Okay, fine. There's our graphic number 2. So we've got graphic number 2. Just minimize these other ones. And we had graphic number 1 to remind us of our previous position. And we had our very starting one, so we've got 3 there. which I'd be placing down into a PowerPoint. Okay, great. What's next? Well, the next thing is stress test it. It's the stats are nice. How does it go with, like, we're working with a 95 pip profit, 95 pip stop. What about all the other profit target settings and stop settings and combinations? So we'll do an optimization of them and drop them in and see what is the go. When doing this, we go from about 600 to 2000. We do increments of 50. And unless you have a particular reason, you really should stick to pretty much that for anything you do. And keep the best. Well, if you put 2000 in there, you won't go wrong. And save. Very important that you say keep the best 2000. If you say keep the best 10, you're doing yourself a disservice. You need that to be a few thousand for what you're trying to achieve here, even though you'll only probably get 50 or 40 return. And you do need 600 to 2000 increment 50 on both your profit and stop. So I'll just save that again. Run that because I want to get that data so I can then throw it into Excel. While I'm waiting for that, I'll get rid of one of my Excel things I don't need. No, don't save it. With your Excels, if you've already got something in one of them, you'll upset it by adding another one in, so you just clear it out. So you get the raw Excel with nothing else. And our optimization is underway. Could take a while. Looks like it's going to take another 25 seconds. And on screen, it's optimized to 90%. One stop out in a row, 70 trades. That's nice. It's not exactly what we're after, but ooh and ah for doing it, eh? I mean, that's yay. I wonder what the profit and stop was on that though. Yeah, I could see pretty quick the stops are pretty large, so that's a bit misleading actually. I dare say we'll find out in a moment. Yeah, the profit's at 105 pips, the stop is 140 pips. Whatever. Let's drop that into the shredder though. We've got a lot more to learn from all this. Here we are in Excel. Now the data has just been dropped in. Now I'm going to click on View and then Macro and run my macro. This time I'm going to run the shredder, our top one. Now there's two things I want to really draw your attention to that have come clear to me with this very helpful tool that we have now. One is, again, document this. So, for example, you'll notice here, if I scroll down, the number of entries we have here would probably be a lot anyway. If I scroll down and down and down, it's a good number. Probably 60, 10, 20, well, probably 90 entries here. And at the very top is the profit and stop we were working with. So we were working with a 95 pip profit, 95 pip stop. And if we stress test that one, if the target was pushed out to 110, if the stop loss was pulled right in to 80, so again we're moving everything by 15 pips, it still comes on par, just so it's acceptable. The next thing I want to look at is the range. Okay, that's 95 and 95, but a lot of the results are around about 140 pips, so 1,400 sort of range. And there's a ton of results there coming up. One thing that interests me, and I'll see if I can show this to you. Yes, I can show it to you. Is firstly, there's two things I want you to look for when you're shredding. The first is, can you get 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 things come into your shredder? If that is the case, it'll show you that you've built something of interest. The second thing is, have a look at the distance between a live percentage and a test percentage. Drum roll, please. Right. 95 profit stop gives you 85% success, and stress tested it varies by 14%. Over here on the left, where I am sort of over this area here, right, it's 70%, over on the right it's 84%. So there's a 14% difference in what's going on. Now here is what interests me, is obviously I want a higher percent success, so these 84s, 83s, 82s are interesting. But over here on the left I've got 70s, 70, 70, 70s through there, and I've got 70s down through here. But there's a bunch here that are 80s on the left as well. So there's some trades, some settings where it's at 80% on both sides of the fence. That's really got my attention. The next thing that's really got my attention is the difference in percentage from the test to the live. And the difference is only 1 to 1.5% different. Now that is really, really significant. So of all my 80%ers that I could have picked, suddenly I've got a real interest in picking these ones. And then in that range I want to pick middle ground. So for example, something that really interests me is the 1,550 to 1,450, around that sort of mark. So with that in mind, I'd like to now do a back test with those type of settings. So let's do a back test, and the settings I think we'll use is the ones mentioned. Let's do that now. So 1550, 1450, run backtest. So 82% success, no more than 2 stopouts in a row. The average compared to the total is quite good. The profit line's okay. But it's a nice way of seeing the end result. What's interesting is when we shredded this thing, there was 50, 60, 70 results come through. And that was one pillar of strength. The second pillar of strength was we had wide percentages, but then we had narrow percentage differences. We had narrow percentage differences at even the 80% mark and higher. And so that's very nice to see. Now, this is something that really caught my attention. I was talking to a friend in the UK today who's studied at a university there and done his PhD over an 11-year period, and his biggest focus was multivariable optimization. So I got real comfortable in my chair and I said to him, what's the single biggest thing you picked up from your years of study on multivariable optimization? Because I'm thinking that's the centerpiece of a lot of our workmanship. And what he said was the most important thing in system design is the need to take sensitivity out of a system. What that means is any of your settings, and let's say you have a setting, an arbitrary setting at say 2.9, make it 3, make it 4, and it should not affect your results too much. And this is from someone who's studied systems in nature, systems in human behavior, and then also in the markets. Now if we translate that and we right click to our backtesting results, what that means is if you adjust some of these settings now and muck around with them a bit, it should not move too much the statistical results you're looking at, and if it does, then the system is weak. So a strong system is a system where you have been able to remove the sensitivity out of the system. Now, okay, that's really interesting, but it also makes me smile because a lot of our traders have figured that out as they've moved through. Then they certainly didn't need to spend 11 years at uni to come to that conclusion. I think the shredder that we just did then showed us in this example, although we've taken some huge liberties with time filters, that the system is quite insensitive in some areas. So the sensitivity we could say it has been already taken out to some degree, and that's quite good. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about cooking and doing batches. You'll hear me use the word batch, creating a batch of systems. So one thing you can do, and this is what I often do, is when I have an idea, don't build one system and then in a few months' time make a decision on that. Build a batch, so as in like making 6 or 8 muffins. So for example, we've built a system and shredded it and we've got some great results, but we went way overboard with our time rules. What we'd do is we'd say, well, this is 1 muffin out of 6. Let's do this again on 5 other FX pairs. Okay, and then we'll observe how it goes. Or doing it another way is let's build it up to 6 months ago and then roll it forward and see the effect if you want immediate results. Then what we could do is we could say that entire batch is one idea, which is stuff that has been made good through time, and then we'll do another set of 6 where we don't touch time, but we really do work with the signal settings to make the system really good. Let's wind back. Let's wind back now and take out time and work with just the indicators. Where would we start? Where would we start when we take out time? I would suggest we look at price action again. So at this point, by the way, we could call this another stepping stone because we've stepped through the shredder and found lots. We could build another graphic right here with all our settings and notes at this point. But I'll leave that for you to do. But I would call this a conclusive point. So you'd put all these settings here through. Your 82%, no more than 2 stop-loss in a row. Your very nice equity curve. And you'd right-click and capture your backtesting notes here. So you can see your settings at 1550, 1450. And also you would open up your code and just take the part of the code which is set 1, because everything else is just standard stuff that's always going to be in your code. Time to step on now. So we have all these time rules, and we could leave them there. I think we'll just comment them out. How you comment something out is //, and the text turns to green, and it enables you to make a lot of comments as you go. So we've taken all that out. We could then go into putting our next piece of code in, but let's make sure that we have in fact made a step backwards. So we'll now just test that again and have a look at what we'll now have is quite a rough line. Okay, very rough line through there. What we could do though is not throw away the baby with the bathwater and say, you know what, we're going to keep with 1550 and 1450 because there's a lot of merit in those settings there. And run with that. So going back to just plain price action, we looked at the first candle. Now, so look at where we are again. We've got a nice messy line again. We've got 146 trades. We're coming up to 70% success, and 3 stop outs in a row. So it's not bad. It's not good. It's a nice starting point. Very nice point to step back to. We looked at, remember, green candle, red candle. What about the candle square brackets 2 ago in code speak, which means the candle prior to the 2 candles we looked at? What happens if we make that red? What happens if we make the candle before that green? What's the effect of that? Do we want to leave that in our code or not, if we were to make some of those changes? And then we could ask ourselves other questions. Because now that we're moved away from our time, what if we were to optimize the ADX a little bit? Because we have not really, to be honest, mucked around with those settings at all, have we? So let's ask a few questions about the ADX, and maybe just in that simple step we will have done a lot with the indicators and hit some of our goals there. So we'll optimize the level from probably about 16 to, I don't want to make this one too long for you all, to about 26. And the period from 12 to 20. Again, max profit factor. And let's see what we come up with just asking those questions. Remembering we were at about 67, I think, % success. Okay, we've got 78% success, no more than 3 stop outs in a row, and a trade count of 50. No time involved whatsoever. We've just gone a little bit clever with our ADX. But our signal count's a bit low. So what else do we have in the optimizer? The next one down is 23 and 14, and to my relief the signal count has improved to 72. 77% success, no more than 2 stop outs in a row. I think I could hang up my towel and go home right there. Let me write that one up. I'll just look at a few more, but 72, now I'm dropping signal count. Don't want to drop signal count too much more than that. 74, 61. Yeah, for the top ones my signal count is not going to get much higher. So we'll do a clean backtest with those settings and re-examine our achievements here. Okay, at this point I think we need to hard code those settings in the system, because otherwise we're just going to forget them and things will get lost. So I'm just going to go into the thing we're working with. The name now is redundant. It's called time filters added, but we've since commented our time filters out, haven't we? So I'll just show you from a code point of view how you'd change your parameters at a hard code level. So ADX level is at 14, we need to change that to 23, so I've just pressed a plus inside the variables there. So it shows me the variables, and I'm changing that. And then the period, which is at 20, we need to change that down to 14, and I'll compile that. While I'm here, actually, I might fix up the profits and stops so that they are correct from a native standpoint, and compile. Now always just check what you've done. So when you make a step like that, just run a test again, because you want to know at that point if you've made a critical error. So it's still running, and all the defaults are there. So at this point, I think is an opportunity to take another screenshot and document it all up. So we'd take one of our graphic with a nice signal count, not great, but quite nice, and performance at 77% success and no more than 2 stops is nice. And we have absolutely no rules around time whatsoever, and the number of rules around our indicators is absolutely minimalistic. We could probably, if we wanted to humor ourselves, we're at 77 now, if we wanted to knock that a little bit higher, we probably could exclude Sundays, because remember I said that's really irrelevant from a day of week point of view. But Sundays are coming in a little bit green here, but because they're a 50-50 trade, they'd be dragging us down. If I cut that out, there's probably 2 trades in that. If I cut that out, it would probably give me 1% or 2. And I don't think that is actually talking about time filters. From an hour point of view, everything's green across the board. So that from a time point of view, can you see that there's nothing to take out here? It's all quite pleasant. So that's nice to see. So we'll carry on. What's the next thing we could optimize? Well, see, this is where you don't want to do too much. I think you could stop right there, and I think that'd be a great place to stop. From here, I mean, you could we'll quickly do it. You could muck around again with your positive offset. Before I do that, I'll just change my screen so I can see where we were. So 100 to 140, increment 1. So now we've gone to 78. We've still got 70 trades, we've gone to 78% success. That's actually not bad. But we're in dangerous ground here. Anything we do from here, I think you want to keep an element of messiness to your artwork. We're not trying to be purists here. So as I say, where we were a moment ago is a lovely place to stop. What we're doing now is a little bit foolish, but we'll see what we've got here. So 78, it's much the same. Okay, now we're starting to go down to 77. So the 78, there's a whole huge group of them where we can set it at. I think we'll try it 136 or something like that to get that. Or 139 worked, 138 worked. So we'll try it at 138. Now that's just that offset thing, remember, and it doesn't say a lot because it would have just dropped out 1 or 2 winners. Didn't achieve a lot. So that's really nice. The line's really nice there. The code's really simple. What else could we do with that? Again, there's a few things we could do, but let's just ask ourselves another question. And that is, we took this code in 2 directions. We took it down the time direction, we've stopped, we've come back. So I think it's time to do another shredding. And let's do that now. So we'll do an optimization again. I'll just check, sorry, on 138 is what we agreed on that. I'll just make that adjustment to the code so that it's in there for good. So I'm just bringing the variables of 105 to 138 and compiling that. And we may not get anything through the shredder, which means there's nothing in it, but we'll have a look. because we're shredding, again we need to set from 600 to 2000 increment 50 on both the profits and the stops. Even though we have an idea of what profit and stop we want to work with now, we do just want to extend the invitation. Now, session template, you'll notice I've had this on instrument settings, not great, I should have had it on the 24/7. It doesn't hurt to, at this point, just change that to what it should have been. It'll just keep it real, and any differences that introduces is probably a healthy thing. The positive offset is its old setting, so I'm just going to remind it on what its new one is, 138. And we're ready to run that now. We're about halfway through that test. We've got another 30 seconds to wait. And there'll be two things that we're looking at. How many entries does it put into the shredder? If there's only 5 or 6 that come up, the thing's a dud. If it brings up none at all, it's very sad. If it brings up 50, 60, 70, that shows something very strong. And the second thing we'll be looking at is between the sim and live percent success. We want a narrow difference between the two. We'll click on the optimizer. We'll now right click to the grid and export to Excel. Clicking on macros, I'll now shred the thing. So we've got quite a bit coming through there. Let's see how many entries we've got. I think we're going to find that we have a lot. We've got enough anyway. It's nice to see. The top one that comes up first in the list is always worth viewing. I think 175 pips is starting to get too broad, but it's nice to see. The difference then between the percentage profitable in the test and the live scenario is 9% wide. Now, with what we were eyeing off to work with, I'll just see if I can find that combination in here, which is 1550 and 1450. I can see some pretty close ones. 1550 and 1500. What's good to see there is the difference is only 4%, and if we drop down a bit it's only 3% if I go 1500, 1400. So we've passed the shredder test again, so I would document all that up. Another thing is I'd just drop it into the time to see what's going on with the times, and let's do that now. Let's just out of curiosity have a quick look at that front as well, even though we're not doing anything at all with the times. So we'll just do a regular backtest on that. I'll just get rid of that previous Excel spreadsheet. Do not save. I'm happy that that's passed. Now we go to trades, right click, export. Here's our Excel. We'll run a time on that. And it says in a few places don't trade, but we don't have any rules there saying that. We might have accidentally left one rule in, which was don't trade 12. That's probably what's kicking out that 1300. But that was on a fundamental thing when the system was raw with no rules, so whatever. But in general terms, look, we don't have any settings here. The quickest way to get an idea of what's going on is just look at days of the week. Sunday, again, if we drop that out, the thing would improve even more, and I think we'd be justified in taking that out, so we could. But the actual during the week is fine. 70s most of the week and a 90 on Friday. We could probably take out March. So I think we'd be justified in taking out 1 month March, because it really is a dud. We could probably take out March and May. I have absolutely no problems with taking out a month or two side by side. I think that's quite sensible. And dropping out the Sunday. But keep in mind that our signal count is at 70, and if we did this, we'd drop our signal count down to unacceptable levels. So that's that. We could probably go on all night. Clearly I have gone on a fair bit tonight. I'll leave you with one last... Actually no, there is one or two more things I want to stress. Again, we'd document at this point, so we'd make our little graphic up of what we're looking at. And we could do that. But when you've reached a point where you think it's good, try and liberate your code. That means bring up your code and annihilate anything you can. Now, the code we've got, there's nothing much to it. But let's see if we can liberate it. So I think it's an important last lesson. There's two more lessons. Liberate the code. I think we'll take a graphic of where we're at right now and document that up. Well, I think we need to liberate it. And then one last thing is a really interesting read on Wiki they're going to leave you with, and that you'll find that quite entertaining. So with your permission, we'll quickly just document where we're at right now. So I'll make another graphic up. There's our nice profit line. There's, actually if that's the backtesting results, and I think it is, I think we can improve this. We're at 74 right there. And again, this thing is proving annoying to me because the 138 is not staying in. So 74. Didn't really seem to care, did it? No. Okay. So take these graphics and mark them all up. I won't write up all the stats, or just do a very quick one, because we just need to learn this lesson of liberating code. Let's grab that and sink it in there, like that. And also our backtesting settings at the time on the right. Take those and drop them in. And I'm just going to hide them down there. Lastly, I'd like to take a quality snapshot of the actual code. You can probably see when I right click that there's versions of the code I haven't closed down, so I'm going to do that now to save confusion. Bring up that code again, and I'm just going to copy out the part. I'm going to kill all the commented out stuff because I just want this to be as simple as possible. Simple code is good code. And we'll put our comments on that here, so we'll just so this was another stepping stone we took. So there's really not much code there, and it's going to be pretty exciting to liberate. We have green candle, red candle, we have CCI cutting 0, we have ADX level, we have confirmation candle not excessively out of order, and we did have one thing which was there from the start, which is just the 12 o'clock candles out. Okay, let's see if we can liberate anything. There's our snapshot of this stepping stone we're on, and the question is, can we take out one or two of the lines of code there, not lose our percent success, increase our signal count, and make the code even simpler? Let's try that now. So I'm going to come in and edit it and just comment out one thing at a time and try it. So again, I'll just take out all of those time things. They did not need to be there. Now we'll comment out the fact that the current candle needs to be a red candle. So let's get rid of the idea that just before we enter the candle was red. Let's keep the idea that the prior candle was green. Let's keep the idea that the difference between the current candle and the previous candle we still consider. And let's run a test on that. Okay, we've just gone up. Oh dear, love that. So we went from 75 trades to 76. Our losses, we still had 90, 57, sorry, I'm just flicking back and forth so I see what's going on here. Okay, we just took out, there's not much in that code, but we just took out this first line of code here. I'll just try and draw it in for you. This line here, which says the confirmation candle needs to be red. We took that out. We commented it out. When we did that, our percent success went up to 75% success. Okay, so I'm just going to put a green tick here and say taking that out is a good thing, and it improves our code. So now I could write this code up again. So I could go through all the different pieces of the code and say how valuable is each one, how much does it knock my percent success around, but right here I know that I can just put a line through that one, and now the whole system is down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code. 5 lines of code in the whole system, and our stats are really nice. Okay, so that's really great. So that's what I mean by, at the end, some of this, the absolute foundations of what you think is so important, right? A red candle on yen for entry. I mean, it can't get any more fundamental than that. We just wiped it out. It had no effect whatsoever. In fact, it improved things, and it made our code even more simple. Huge lesson in that. I'm going to leave you with one more thing. Okay, on screen is a wiki page. I want you to go to Google and wiki the graphic on the right hand side you can see, which is LTCM. So wiki LTCM, and read about a company called Long-Term Capital Management. The people who made up this firm were some of the brightest. They included the actual mathematical pricing model of how an option is calculated. Right, the guys who did that were a part of this firm. And it's all about algorithmic trading at the biggest level you can imagine. So big, in fact, that they became the market in some areas, and ultimately they had to be bailed out. Their effect, the size they grew, was so large that it threatened to destabilize the entire global economic system in a smaller way than what we've seen recently, but it was really, really that serious. And the single most interesting thing about these guys is their fundamental view and philosophy was that they weren't particularly interested in building algorithms on efficient, heavily traded markets, but they'd go just one level lower to say Danish bonds or something. Just not quite so liquid, so therefore not quite so efficient, because they had the idea that it was easy to build systems on those. So enjoy that read. Thanks for joining us. I hope you found tonight to be really beneficial. Duncan's just mentioned there's a book about it, and the book is called When Genius Fails, and he says it's a good read as well. Thanks traders, happy trading, keep fit, do this every morning, little bits often, and do talk amongst your support group. That's the most important thing you have, and we'll talk soon. Thanks traders, bye now. Traders, you remember a session or two ago we took GBPJPY and we built a great system that was optimized by the indicator and then optimized by time. So what we have here is optimized by the indicator. We'll just run this again. There's the settings and stats, and we run it. And this is our backtesting performance, and it is not too bad, and I'll just quickly show you the code as well. Okay, so here's the code through here. And for the indicator optimized, the code you'll remember is very simple, and we've added this piece of code in here just to try and, as best we can, keep clear of the interventions. You'll remember too that it went through the shredder really well. And next I want to show you another piece of code we wrote, which was time optimized. So there's the time optimized one, OK stats. And if I come in here, we'll just have a quick look at the code for this one as well. That's all to be expected. But here's the time side of things that was optimized. And what's really interesting is I just want to show you on a chart something that might capture your attention. Is if we run both of these at once, which one is best? Now you've got to remember that they're complete opposite ends of the spectrum. So we'll go the indicator optimized. And time optimized. Now this really captures my attention because indicator optimized from our starting point is like heading south, and then time optimized. So we've got indicator optimized and time optimized, and heading one direction or the other is the complete opposite way you could take your coding style. And when we then put them both through the shredder, and we found that both came through the other side of the shredder okay. And when you put them both on at once, you'll notice that some of these trades are getting in at exactly the same candle, which is quite unusual when you consider that the direction we took in building them couldn't be more different. So we'll just go and have a look at a few of these. So that's a single one. There's one where they both happen together again. Here's a situation where they happened together again. See that through there? They both got in on exactly the same point and they're getting out around the same area. Here's another one where they both triggered. See, when they're triggering on the same candle. This is really, really uncanny. So with that thinking in mind, what I decided to do was literally combine them and say that both conditions had to be true for the signal to trigger. So I'll just show you what that looks like, combining them. Now this is not cherry picking all the winners. What it's doing is it's saying, I'll just show you the variables there. You can put it at, this is completely up to you. You might want to put this at 5 and 5. I've put this at 3 and 7 for my own reasons, but put it through the shredder and you'll see it comes through the shredder really nice, and you'll be able to see a lot of opportunities with it. But I've got the reason, the first set in the top here, and the second set in the bottom. So this was all about the indicator being optimized, and this one was all about time being optimized. And if they both line up, so if this will only trigger if it's a double. Now there's a few things here that are redundant, such as CCI crossing below, and then here it checks again if the CCI is crossing below. It doesn't matter that it's in there twice. I like to have the condition written in there twice just so that I can see that they're separate. And again, this is not cherry picking and putting in lots of rules and filters. It's putting two completely different systems in that were designed in separate ways, but it's checking if they both agree before it triggers. And it's interesting that it checks them both because their development cycle is just north and south. It's the complete opposite. And have a look at this. This is really interesting when you run that. I'll just run it like this first. So that's quite interesting. When you put the two together like this, the performance is really good. What I find interesting now is, well, there's a few things that are interesting. If you put that through the shredder and pick your best size profit and stop, you'll be quite happy. If you put this at, like I did, a slightly smaller profit, slightly larger stop, what I'm doing there is just accounting, just giving that profit every chance of being hit, like so. And if you have a look at the chart, this is what really interests me. Actually, we'll just go back to an equal size profit and stop for starters. Is if you have a look at the quality of the profit and stop areas, it's the single most satisfying thing. So this one here, where the profit hit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, price couldn't sort of move lower than that level, and it really sparked up afterwards. You'll see some more obvious examples. So there's an example where price, that was really a reversal point for price. Now that's super exciting to see. Profit target area. This is really nice too, because what it tells us is price was low. Let me try and draw this a few times. So price came down quite low, but it just couldn't get below this sort of certain point for a particular reason, and the particular reason was, I think, is there's a lot of get out orders sitting quite just under it, and this is where it broke through. And when it went through, it had just so much to get through, because there was a whole heap of buy to close orders that had to work through first, and then away it went and it fell away. So there it is, sitting there for a long time, and then it just caved in. And when it caved in, it did not slow down, it just absolutely went south. So again, that's really comfortable to see, very reassuring. See this? It's an absolute turning point. Again, point, real turn, and again. So what this shows us is we're tuning in to an interesting market move. Once again. And it's interesting to see how price can sit around for literally days, literally almost a week, and then it'll take the levels it's been sitting around, and in 1 hour it'll go on and deliver. And you'll see that a lot too, sitting around and then away. Now have a look at that for a key turning point. Right, again, almost every single trade is on a key turning point. This was a major pause still through there, 4 or 5 hours. Now this point here, this point here, this point here, absolutely major turning point again. And so we were coming in right on the nose of it, and again through here. So very comfortable. I like this one because you were seeing this effect again. Okay, couldn't get through because there's so many buyers just sitting there, which were buy to closes. So many buyers, and then when it went through, it's just like breaking through glass. It fills them all and absolutely falls like you wouldn't believe. So I'm so pleased that where our profit target is also where it just fell through them all and away it went, because there's nothing holding it anymore. It's like a damn wall filled up with water, and it just breaks. And we're in that. We're a part of that. We've found that. There's a stop out. Again, it was a point where price sort of moved on over as well. And I really like that stop out there. That's very encouraging. It just means if I had a slightly bigger stop, I wouldn't pick that up. But also, a lot of people must have been stopped because it just turned right on that point. And also it went there a second time at exactly that height again. Another major turning point for the profit levels, and then it just turned completely on that spot. And this is what I'm talking about again with the damn wall. Price just sits so much on that particular level, it just cannot and will not go through, and then it sort of picks itself up and just drops itself through as it can, and away it falls. Very nice to see. Again, a pullback on that hour through that one. Again, another major turning point. So you get the idea. It's pretty comforting. And what I would say from that is go back and watch the session where we did an optimization on GBPJPY by time, then we did one by indicator, and have a look at the signal count, and you'll notice that when we combine them we still had about half the signals. So that means almost half the signals were in common. And when we took the complete opposite ends of the field and put them together and check that both agree before we have a signal, it's pretty nice. Now, what if you made that standard practice with your signal design? So you took an idea, you went completely down the indicator optimization thing, and then you went back to the start and you took it down the time optimization, and then if you put them together and if you see that half your signal count doesn't drop by more than half, right, and then you go through and you study where the profits and stops are resting and sitting, and you see that it's sitting really well with market turns, then you're in harmony with what the market rhythm is doing, and that is very exciting and very special. So I hope you enjoy that. I think it is an absolute buzz. It's very exciting, and I hope you get a lot out of that. Please don't copy this strategy. If you do, you'll lose lots of money and the strategy won't work. Disclaimer, disclaimer. Build your own, but build on the ideas presented here. This is about sowing a seed and getting you to think clearly and think with focus, and going the complete opposite ends of the fields and then bringing them back together and making sure that you still got half of the signals that agree to the candle on every single one, and making both agree before it triggers is hugely important. And also I'll add that when you put this here through the shredder, it brings up a ton of results, which is amazing also, and it shows that the sensitivity to a point has been taken out of the system still. So very nice to see. Thanks traders, we'll talk soon.